Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Recruiters with No Limits. Always live and never scripted. I'm here with my sidekick and co-host, John Raffini. Johnny, what's up, brother?
Always good to see you, Richard.
You too, my man. And you know what? No introduction here. We have a great guest today, John. You ready for this? We got Barry Asin from SIA. Hey, Barry.
Great to be on with you guys. Have seen the show here, and I can't believe I actually made it. So thanks for having me. You have the best walk-on music I've heard. So I got to get a song like that for every time I appear somewhere.
It gets you pumped up.
Yeah. No, that's great.
And you know, it's Barry, it's always unfiltered here, so you can say whatever you want. It's live for the world. But let's just deep dive in, Barry. I want to talk about you and a little bit about the history of you, and then we'll deep dive into our subject.
So wait, you're asking me about me?
Yes.
So Barry,
where would you like
the 2-minute tour?
I grew up in Buffalo, New York, and so I'm a little sad about the Bills right now. But we're looking forward to next year.
That was surprising, especially in the heavy snow. You would have thought the outcome would have been different.
They've been good at that.
If I saw correctly, Barry, this year is 20 years for you with SIA.
Yeah, it's been pretty amazing. So that puts me at like industry veteran status. I think if you add on, I was the sort of short version of a long story. Everybody has a long story. I was one of the first. I was hired at Adia, which eventually became Adecco, as head of strategic planning. And I think I was one of the first customers of SIA back then, looking for data on the market and industry trends and market research, and stumbled on SIA way back when, liked it so much that after about a dozen years with Adecco, I decided to stay married to my wife, and instead of moving to Switzerland with Adecco, I left and joined SIA as the first research analyst, as the chief analyst. Wow. way back in 2003, and it's been a great ride, and it's just been an amazing time to be in this position. So we feel like we're right in the center of just everything that goes on in the staffing industry, and more now we talk about the workforce solutions ecosystem, all the businesses around staffing. It's been an incredibly dynamic 20 years. The impact of technology in particular has just, there's been so much change and the like. And, the fact that we're doing this live right now, and sort of I figured out how to get connected, about 30 seconds before the show. So just the fact you're doing stuff like that, it's a different world, but
I love it. 20 years. You're like Tom Brady, what do you have? 22 years? I mean,
yeah, that's very kind
status. I'm amazed, Barry, at how much SIA has grown and how deep you guys dive into data across the entire industry. I mean, how big is your staff now? Because obviously it's a lot bigger than when you joined it.
Yeah, when I joined, we were about 15 people. We're over 60 right now. We're adding more. We've got a team over in Europe, based out of London. We've recognized, there's been a few things from our standpoint. We've recognized how the industry has changed over time. When I joined the company, it was Staffing Industry Analysts. We've rebranded SIA, in part because we realized that, a lot of what goes on in staffing now is broader than the old definitions of the industry. You think about all the growth of statement of work and consulting businesses and the impact of technology and all those models around there, the globalization of the industry. That's why we've got people, out there internationally. So, we're just trying to stay ahead as much as we can with all the innovation and change that's going on in the industry. And it's certainly, the other thing I would say is, we've grown with the industry in that, it's been a 20 years of growth. And I think that's because, the industry really does great things for its clients. Being in the middle of connecting workers who need work with the organizations that need that. The way that happens is always going to change, but the fundamentals remain, and the need for help with that is it's a great thing to be have with, helping people get jobs. So
well, and so many great events for networking and learning throughout the year. You have them, general. You have them for specific industry sectors. I know every year, we're at the Healthcare Staffing Summit, which always gives us a great insight into, what happened and what the predictions are ahead. And you do that for each sector, which is amazing to me. And you do it internationally. So, SIA truly has become the go-to company for any type of research and analysis within the staffing industry.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think the team really works hard on that. We see our mission, informing people with all of our research and our editorial products as well. If folks want daily news about the industry, you can. That's a free thing. You can just sign up if you just go to our website at staffingindustry.com. You can sign up there to get our daily news. But we see informing people with what's going on, connecting everyone through these conferences. And more we're trying to do our part to elevate the industry and try to, it's become a much more professional business than it was when I first got involved with that. And it's really, it's impressive how the industry has evolved.
So what's the data telling you for 2023? What are some things that, if you're in the staffing industry, some things that we should be aware of or on the lookout for?
Yeah, I think 2023. So we do twice a year. We do an industry forecast for staffing in the U.S. We do it around the world as well. But first off, it's important to point out that 2021 and 2022 were amazing years for staffing. So naturally, you're not gonna. 23 is not going to be as good as that. I mean, our estimate, I'm just looking at our forecast here. The industry grew 32% in 2021, 14% in 2022. We're projecting it about flat for 2023. We'll see. We'll redo our forecast. This is in terms of revenue.
Right.
So there's an inflationary thing going on, right? There's, it's not just the volume of workers, it's also the pay and the bill rates, which have been going up. But the big stories of the last couple of years, big drivers of growth, it's just been the craziness of the pandemic and the recovery from that. We went from a situation where healthcare staffing was like the third or fourth largest segment in the industry. And last year it became the largest segment in the staffing industry, which is just a crazy thing. A lot of that just driven by the huge demand for travel nurses. In 2023, we think that's going to moderate. So healthcare staffing's got to slow down a bit. I think we're already seeing that some, but it's never going to go back, I think, to where it was pre-pandemic. And I think the same is true for staffing. So I think it's going to be a tougher year than 2022. Still a talent short year in a lot of ways for key skills, but people are going to have to learn how to sell again, which, I think particularly in places like healthcare staffing and IT, the orders would just come in the past couple of years. I think now you actually might have to pick up the phone or, knock on a few doors and things like that.
Old school.
And that's going to be interesting because so many people entered into staffing during that heyday that if they didn't have to sell then and they're just starting now, it's going to be a challenge for them.
Yeah, we see that, and we track the data on the industry. And one of the things we can get into, if you want to talk about it, is a couple of years ago, my colleague Mike Cleland and I got this idea for a book which we wrote called Breaking Through. And the premise was basically there's 19,000 staffing firms in the US, and only about 150 of them, I think not last year it was maybe 100, up to close to 200, get to over 100 million in revenue. And so what's different about those? And of those, of the 19,000 staffing firms, why do so few make it to the top? And why, when things turn down, do 2,000 or 3,000 staffing firms just disappear, overnight when things get a little tough, and then spring back up when things get better? It's a very flexible industry with low barriers to entry, but challenging to do really well. And so that's one of the things that we're really interested in, is just like, what does it take to help small and mid-sized staffing firms really grow to become those join that $100 million club. And
it's so hard, because obviously you look at resources that are available to the big giants as opposed to someone who's starting up. And obviously they weren't always big giants. They had to start from somewhere, but getting to that point and getting to a point where you can compete, finding your niche, finding ways to do business that maybe your clients will gain more from, that the big people can't provide. All those things factor in to a landscape that, the little guy's always going to be the Goliath to the David to the Goliath,
the underdog.
That's definitely true. And the thing that's amazing to us when we look at studying these companies that went from startup to 100 million and beyond, and some of them in 10, 15 years, pretty quick. Some of them even a little quicker. The classic story of that might be a company like Insight Global that in 20 years basically went from 0 to $1 billion or so, and now they're 2 or 3 billion. But the thing that is the best predictor of what small companies are going to make it, it's not about money, it's not about resources that the big companies have. It's about the quality of the leadership. And everything that, I guess that would be my best advice to folks who are listening. Like, if you're looking at your small staffing firm and you want to grow up to be, battling it out with the big boys, it's everything you can do to raise your personal game and the game of your leadership team is key to to driving growth into the future. And we found that across the board, looking at companies that have been able to grow. It's the quality of the leadership team and the discipline, really, of those leadership teams. What we found were sort of 5 key disciplines of leadership of staffing firms that were able to grow. Was first, they had a commitment to growth. There's a lot of those 19,000 staffing firms. There's a whole lot of them that see it as a lifestyle business, right? Which, there's nothing wrong with a lifestyle business. Like, everybody wants to have a life, maybe a life with a little style. The problem is the world keeps changing, and so if you're standing still, you're falling behind. And so that's rough. So commitment to growth. Strategy matters. There's a reason that a lot of these, IT and healthcare have been great strategic choices over the last couple of decades. But there's a lot of reasons, a lot of strategic choices companies go to grow. The other thing that we see about firms that really grow is culture. A big focus on building a high performance culture in their organization. There's a high correlation between the firms that win our best staffing firms to work for competition and the companies that are on our fastest growing staffing firms list. It's no surprise, because this is a people business. It's like, if you hire great people and you keep them happy and you keep them engaged, good things are going to happen unless you really screw it up. And it's so that, and talent development is, one of the other key disciplines, about just always looking to find great people starting at the leadership team and driving that, always looking for great people and building them up, building the next generation of leaders. And then finally, all these companies, they also execute, like, they do the details. But that's usually where people start. It's like, if I just had the right comp plan or something like that. And we always advise, it's like, no, you got to start at the beginning. It's like, who's leading this business, and what are they doing to build the right strategy and a high performance culture? So That's probably a lot more of an earful, guys, than
no, that's
I love it.
But
and it just reinforces that, everything starts at the top and the leaders have to lead from the front. Whatever the leaders do, the rest will tend to follow. So
yeah,
what kind of example are they setting? What kind of culture are they dictating? That's great information, especially, if you're in that sector where you're looking to grow, because some firms don't want to grow. They want to stay there. But if you're looking to grow, then that's advice they should heed.
Yeah, no, and I think, and that's the theme. So you were sort of asking about our conferences and the like. So our executive forum that's coming up in Miami, that's really, the whole focus of that is sort of like, what do leaders of organization, of staffing firms need to do to grow their business? And, we explore that in a whole bunch of different ways. And that's really, that's sort of at its core. That's what we're about at SIA. It's like, we're trying to figure out, like, what do people need to know in order to be successful into the future.
So true. Hey, Barry, I got to ask you real quick. So in 2023, it's prediction that all the workers are going to come back to work. A lot of them are, you know what I mean? They were laid off. What is your take and data on this of the workers coming to work? And then I also see some stats that, there's going to be more women in the workforce than men this year.
Yeah, I think people are definitely coming back to work, and there's nothing like a slowdown in the economy. Certainly, the Fed is trying to engineer a soft landing, so I do think more people are coming back to work, and it'll be interesting to see, because a lot of the Great Resignation that we all talk about, really what it was the Great Retirement. A big lot of that was people in that sort of 55 to 65 who just said, like, this pandemic stuff is like, this is just crazy. I'm done.
I'm out of here.
This is too hard. And, I can understand the sentiment. Some of them, I think, as people look at their 401ks and the like now, maybe they're willing to come back into the workforce. Certainly people are predicting that. I do think there's a big chunk. The labor force participation is creeping up, but we're still below where we were pre-pandemic. So we're getting there in terms of the size of the total workforce. But we've had this big realignment of, so I think we're going to have an ongoing talent shortage, particularly in key skills. But so there are people coming back into the workforce, and I hadn't really heard that stat about more women coming back in, but I guess it's not surprising, because I think jobs that are more female dominated were some of the hardest hit early on in the pandemic, sort of hospitality, service, many of the travel jobs and things like that. And so as those come back, naturally more women will come back into the workforce doing those jobs.
And you know what's amazing? Light industrial, where I'm at, there's more women applying for jobs than the guys. Really, in my manufacturing. It's like a total switch now.
Well, I think people want to get paid well, and so and I think that obviously there's a lot of manufacturing jobs have a lot to offer. So yeah, that's an interesting dynamic that you guys are right in the middle of.
It's going to be interesting to see how the economy how it impacts salaries, because I'm reading a bunch of articles every day about the impact and how wages, inflation goes up, but wage growth has not kept pace. So now some companies are trying to catch up in a big way, especially in certain sectors, to prevent turnover and to keep people on staff. But there's only so much you can absorb without really hurting into your bottom line. So it's going to be a challenge for companies, I believe, to find that happy medium where the employees feel recognized and taken care of, but the company's not going bankrupt.
Right. Yeah, I think it'll probably be impossible to ever get to a point where your employees are happy with what they're getting paid. So I think everybody always wants to get paid a little more. And I think John, part of that is like, if you're talking about the temporary workers versus the internal staff, I think there's different things that wages are definitely more sticky for people who have full-time jobs. Like
Mm-hmm.
you won't get fully caught up to inflation generally for precisely that dynamic, right? Companies just, can't necessarily afford it unless they can raise prices more than, faster than inflation, I suppose. But among temporary workers, we've already seen big spikes in pay, right? Because that's really a spot market for talent, and it's and particularly in the healthcare world, just think about like what travel nurse wages and other healthcare worker wages did, and in a lot of ways, it's just where the power dynamic is shifting and where there's intense talent shortages, like among nurses, you're going to see, wages that in a lot can grow faster than inflation, and can go faster even than bill rates or revenue might grow for a staffing firm.
Yeah, to your point earlier, those wages in particular, they're definitely not what was going on in the pandemic, but they're still higher than pre-pandemic.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And, you can just go out and look if you Google like nurse strike right now, you can see lots of examples of nurses, just imagine what it's been like to be a nurse since 2020, and just from going from, like, if you remember early 2020, going from being a hero to then just sort of being burnt out, and then looking to your left and right and seeing travel nurses who are making 2 or 3 times what you're making. And, that led to a whole wave of resignations, and
sure, they started traveling,
and people become traveling. Yeah. It's an amazing sort of dynamic. So maybe this is a time where if that seeps through the rest of the staffing industry, we'll see eventually where, whole industries will have their workers convert from traditional workers to temporary workers. It could happen. Certainly, it's happened to a degree in healthcare staffing.
Sure.
Yeah. Hey Barry, one other question I got to ask you. So the tech stack, can you tell any insight and data about like these staffing firms? This tech stack thing goes so far. What are you seeing in 2023 that it's going to get the firms over the edge with technology?
Wow. Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that, Richard. It's a, some of the most interesting and complex things going on in the industry right now are like, what tech tools is everybody adopting? And there's just been this explosion of technology going on, to the point where a lot of the research analysts that we've been hiring recently have been just focused on that. Like we just hired a guy who's a former staffing company CIO as our tech research director. And so we're looking at all this stuff of like, how do you put your tech stack together as one of the leading areas that we're doing research on right now. Because the challenge is, particularly for small and mid-sized staffing firms, if you don't have like a whole IT department, is you see, everybody's got, their claims that like all these tech tools are going to solve your problems.
Right.
And they will, it's amazing the technology that's out there now. And we get briefed on a lot of this, and, we see like all sorts of incredible technology tools out there. I think that the main question staffing companies need to ask as they're looking about technology tools is, how are you actually going to integrate this into your business? And you're going to have to change your business processes, and maybe even like your jobs and your compensation sometimes, depending on some of these tools and the way people do their day-to-day work. And so paying more attention, asking more questions about integration and, implementation and the like, I think that would be like my first advice for people, is just as you're looking at all the technology, you definitely have to transform. We see a key trend towards digital transformation. We're doing a whole lot of research on like the platformization of staffing. Think about, the question is always like, who's going to be the Uber of staffing, or is there going to be an Uber of staffing? and to what extent will the job of recruiters get replaced. There's a lot of exciting innovation going on there, some disruptive change coming along. Staffing firms definitely have to keep up on top of that. But you've got to make smart decisions about it and not just grab the first thing that comes along. The great news about the tech stack decisions is that you don't have to build this stuff yourself nowadays, right? It's like they're out there. So like if you want to take your business and make it more of a platform self-service model, or at least have that option, we cover a whole new segment of the vendor space that we call SPaaS, which is staffing platforms as a service. You can go out and there's a whole bunch of vendors who will bring you a staffing platform to transform your business so that candidates and recruiters, or candidates and clients, could sort of connect directly. You can get the technology. The challenge is, how are you going to implement that? And what are you thinking through all the changes you need to make internally? And that's why it's a lot more than just going and signing a contract for a piece of technology, or adding an AI bot to your business or something like that.
It's a great point. To dovetail off of that, Barry, I agree totally. It's important, first and foremost, the leadership should have some sort of strategy, and the company should know kind of where they want to go, and then see how technology can help them get there, versus, wow, this is the latest and greatest. Let's get it. And then let's figure out what to do with it.
Well, it's interesting you say that. And I was just talking with my colleague, John Nerthen, who leads our global research team. And he was just presenting on this. And he was showing some data on car washes, which, like, what the hell does that have to do with that? But, you would think that car washes, that by now that all car washes would be totally automatic, and it would be robots would just come and wash your car and you'd be done. But actually, the fastest growing thing over the last couple of decades has been hand car washes.
No kidding.
So, the parallel for staffing is, like, you have to decide what you want to be. So do you want to be like the tech first sort of automated platform model, or do you want to be like the niche, high service, white glove model? And those those are strategic choices. Those decisions influence what sort of technology you buy. Even if you're the white glove model, probably you want some amount of technology. I bet you're not going to go back to index cards and file cabinets for your candidate. I do remember those days.
Dare we say the word Rolodex?
Yeah, the Rolodex. Right? I actually remember at Adecco, when they were implementing their first system, I remember them like taking the Rolodexes and the file cabinets and throwing them out. There was like a big party when they started throwing all those things away.
You guys will love this. I have a recruiter who's 22 years old. And I said Rolodex. She said, "Oh, do you have a Rolex?" She had no clue what it was. I was like, "No."
Yeah, it's a generational thing, Richard. I think you just have to get over it.
Oh boy. One thing I want to touch on a little bit is diversity, DEI. What is your forecast for this, for 2023? I mean,
right.
Everybody needs more of this. What are you seeing with staffing firms?
Yeah, we've been doing a lot of research. I mean, we see our particular niche in this is to be a source of information and research on what's going on. So we've done a number of research reports on the state of diversity and inclusion in the world of staffing and of contingent work. There's definitely an appetite. I think the clients drive this, right? So there definitely has been an appetite from clients to make sure that staffing firms have embedded diversity in their organization. I think historically, diversity in staffing was a little bit of a checkbox thing where clients would come and say, they wanted some percentage of their staffing firms to have diversity ownership. And what's changing now is more and more diversity and inclusion is about candidates, and the ability to bring a more diverse workforce to clients. And so I think that is going to continue to be something that clients are looking for. And I think it's the research we show is that it's going to be a higher priority for clients. Staffing firms are making it a higher priority as well. It's not only the right business thing to do, because in a talent short world, you really can't afford to leave any talent behind. And it's it's the right thing to do from a moral, ethical standpoint, to be fair and inclusive for everyone out there. So I think it's not going to go away. I do think that a lot of this, the industry is very responsive to clients, and so part of this is like educating clients and getting them to also be part of the solution as well.
Makes sense. Hey, on February 7th, SIA has a webinar that's coming up about 2023. What can people expect if they attend that?
Oh, that's super secret. You got to.
Oh, Johnny!
No.
You got to attend to find
Come
out.
Come on, Barry. Can you give us a teaser?
I think. Well, so first off, the part of the reason I said that was because our research team is driving it. So I'm like, I don't know what they're going to present yet. I think they might invite me to come. So I'll tell you what I think they might say, but they'll probably, these guys are actually crunching the numbers, and they'll probably tell me the 5 reasons why I'm wrong. But I think that what are they going to say about 2023? I think it's it's going to be our sort of trend prediction is recession-y, a slower growth year for sure. The industry is very responsive to GDP and the like, and we're already seeing, like, we do every week we put out the SIA Bullhorn staffing indicator, which is a weekly. We go through Bullhorn's data. They've got a good chunk of the market, and just look at how the industry is doing. We've seen that over the last number of weeks. It's trended down, but it's not fallen off a cliff. It's down, like, I think the latest reading was like 3% down from 2022 levels, January of 2022. So I would, my expectation is sort of a slow growth, no growth, at least in the first half of 2023. We're more optimistic, I think, as we get later in the year, assuming we don't have any major shocks like a debt default. That would be bad. So, or like some new stage in the war in Ukraine or something like that, or a major escalation there. But I think anybody who tells you they know for sure is lying. I've learned that we've learned it again and again over the past couple of years.
Can never be sure.
Yeah, in the very short term, I think that's true. What we're really optimistic about, and I'm sure we'll talk about this in our webinar then, is we're really optimistic about the long term for the industry. So that the underlying drivers are really strong, and the first is just this, what we call sort of talent shortage to talent crisis. I think that'll ease a little bit in 2023. We're already seeing it. It's a little easier to get talent, but it ain't easy. The great thing about that is the services of staffing firms are valued more than ever when talent is short. So that I think is a good long-term driver for the industry. The other thing is the pandemic just opened people's minds to new flexible ways of working. We work here, but the fact that every single staffing firm, every local staffing firm could now theoretically draw from a regional, national, or global labor pool is a game changer. Clients are more open to it than ever. Of like just different ways of working. They're also just more open to like flexible work. They're like, hey, maybe instead of just hiring someone full time, we might use a temporary worker. And then the final thing is, the technology, and that's causing there's risks to the industry, but there's also huge opportunities for productivity gains for staffing firms. So, we're pretty optimistic long term, and I think 2022 or 2023, I think we'll have a little bit of rough sledding for a couple of months here. I'm optimistic on the longer term.
Outstanding.
Good wrap. Johnny, any final thoughts, man?
Barry, can't thank you enough for taking time out of your schedule to join us and share your insights. If couple things that stuck out that will stand with me is when you talked about in your book Breaking Through, what you and your colleague found was that one of the driving forces to help companies get over that hump, it all came from the leadership and the discipline of that leadership to execute. I thought that was very insightful. It wasn't about revenue or the number of clients or the number of candidates. It all starts very simple principle, but big implications. So I found that very insightful. If folks want to get more out of or get in touch with or become part of SIA, where you truly are informing, connecting, and elevating folks in the staffing industry, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, I mean, they obviously you can go to our website, and there's you can inquire there about membership. You can send me an email, Basin, BASIN at staffingindustry.com. I'll pass it along to the right folks. And I mean, thanks. I really appreciate it, Richard and John. Appreciate the opportunity, and happy to happy to be part of the industry here. And thanks for what you guys are doing. It's really cool.
You are welcome. So now it's time for the plug. This is the exciting part. You ready for this? Everybody, you got to be there in March. I'm telling you what, it's staffing, it's sun, and the Shark's going to be there. I'm going to be there. So what the heck? We're going to have some fun, Barry. You know that.
This is the conference that in March of 2020 we were like days away from, and we canceled it and rescheduled it for 2023. So we're thrilled to be back in Miami Beach at the Fontainebleau. It's a cool place, and we've got a lot of the movers and shakers in the staffing industry are going to be there. So we're really looking forward to it. Look forward to seeing you there, Richard.
Me too. Awesome there. And you guys still have time to register. So you see the link down there and stuff like that. We'll reach out to us, we'll help you out. And Barry, I'm going to sum up like this, man. I'm going to get my surfboard and ride a staffing wave in 2023, man. That's it.
There you go. All right. Look forward to it.
Hey, that's a wrap. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks again, Barry.
Barry, thanks so much.